Jesus tells us that he is the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father except through him. So we have to hold to the truth. But we also have to hold to unity. Jesus, at the Last Supper, the same place he tells us he's the way, the truth, and the life, also prays for his future followers. He says, I pray not for these only, but also for those who believe in me through their word. So what is his prayer for you and me? It's that we will all be one, even as he and the Father are one. That they may believe in us, so the world may believe that thou hast sent me. He's saying we have to hold to unity, and it's vital for the success of the gospel that we do hold to unity. Like, imagine how much more successful Christianity would be if we weren't constantly fighting with one another. We have to hold these two things, according to Jesus, truth and unity. If you reject truth, what happens? 2 Peter 2, St. Peter warns us about heretics who introduce destructive heresies, even denying the master who bought them, bringing upon themselves swift destruction. So if you reject truth for the sake of error, you are risking at least spiritual damnation. But likewise, if you reject the unity of the church, you're also risking spiritual damnation. St. Paul, in his letter to the Galatians, talks about the works of the flesh, and he lists them and includes things like enmity and strife and dissension and party spirit. In other words, Christians who pit themselves against other Christians who break away from the unity of the church. And he warns that those who do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of God. That's an even clearer warning that that's damnable. So you may not be a heretic, you may not be a schismatic. So here's the kicker. If your teacher in the church, bishop, pope, requires you to believe a certain doctrine in order to be a Christian, what are you going to do? Well, if that doctrine is erroneous, if the pope says, by my infallible authority, I'm declaring this thing to be true and it's false, every one of us has to say, okay, well, I'm going to accept this false doctrine and become a heretic, or I'm going to break away from the church and become a schismatic. And Jesus told us we couldn't do either of those things. And remember, in John 17, when he's praying for his future followers, he knows the future. He's God. When he's praying for us and telling us to remain one, he knows about corruption in the church. He knows about unworthy bishops and popes. He knows about all of that stuff. And he doesn't say, okay, unless you really disagree, then go form your own church. He doesn't say that at all. So that's why we believe in infallibility, because it's the only way to harmonize the biblical evidence. Otherwise, you have this tension between truth and unity. And I think any Protestant who's being honest will tell you they've experienced that tension. Do we break apart, or do we stay one and just kind of fudge the differences? Neither of those. You don't choose truth over unity. You don't choose unity over truth. You choose unity in the truth. That's the actual biblical message. Papal infallibility, and more broadly, the infallibility of the church, makes sense of that.